Fellas, it is fight week for UFC 301. Some people have called this card a glorified fight night, but I think this card is full of bangers, and I think it's actually going to make for a really underrated fight card. So, as always, I'm going to be predicting every single fight on the main card, as well as one prelim fight that I think is going to stand out from the rest. Let me know your predictions down below and your thoughts on this card so far. Starting with the prelim fight that I've chosen. I've chosen Elvis Brena versus Orai. The reason I've chosen this fight is because I feel like this has prelim of the night potential. This is honestly one of the best prelim fights. I think it's going to be an absolute scrap. You've got two guys, both really good grapplers. You've got the dangerous striking of Brena, but you've got the relentless pace of Melper. And Melper right now, one of my favourite prospects in the UFC. I really do think he's got potential to climb the rankings. He's such a good fighter. He's absolutely insane, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm picking Melper to win this one, and I'm picking him to win by decision. I think Brena, like I said, he's dangerous on the feet, and he also uses his striking to set up his takedowns, but Melper kind of reminds me of Marab. He's got this relentless grappling pace. He just keeps going for 3 rounds. His stamina is amazing. He's got a decent chin as well, and I feel like his grappling pace is going to keep him up for 3 rounds against Brena. I don't think he's going to get the submission because Brena's actually, he's shown that he's a great grappler. His submission defense is amazing, and on the feet he's quite dangerous as well, which is going to pose problems to Orai, but I can just see Orai spamming the takedowns, keeping him against the cage for a lot of the fight. But because Brena's got obviously the takedown defense and the submission defense, when it is on the feet, that's where I think he's going to land the big shots and be very effective against Orai. So I'm picking Orai to win this one by decision, but I'm really interested to see how this guy plays out in the UFC because he's one of my favorite prospects, and I think his grappling is definitely going to get in this winning this fight. And then we've got the main card, Melper versus Poirier. I got Poirier winning this one by TKO in the second round. Poirier just seems like the sacrificial lamb for the UFC right now. First, he tried feeding him to Sharputin Magomedov, and now they're trying to feed him to Melper. Melper, I think he's insane. He's looked phenomenal at 185 so far. Obviously, used to be at 170, and then he had the whole controversy over missing weight over Wonderboy, so they had to move him up to 185. And oh my gosh, he's looked amazing. His last fight against McCall, who was a dangerous striker, hits him with a body shot in the first round, follows up by getting a submission. This guy's one of the best in the middleweight division. I know it's too early to say that, but I really do think this guy's going to climb the rankings. He's insane. I mean, his striking, first of all, has got this weird, really awkward kind of striking. Obviously, we all know him for his back clips and his highlights that he does, but he's actually a really good striker. Very, very powerful as well. And he's also a great grappler, which is what he's going to win in the fight against Poirier in that first round, especially because Poirier, another dangerous striker, but he doesn't have the takedown defense to be on there against Melper. So I think Melper is going to mix it up with his grappling and his striking, beat him in the first round with his striking, maybe land a couple big shots on Poirier, but Poirier's got a decent chin, and I think in the second round he's going to take him down and destroy him with ground and pound until eventually he gets that finish, probably threaten a few submissions as well. And I've got Melper winning this one by second round TKO. I just don't think Poirier is on the level. It feels like he's actually a step down in competition from Melper's last fight, which is a bit odd, but yeah, I got Melper winning this one by TKO in the second round just because he's a much more well-rounded, and from there hopefully we can see him climb the rankings in the middleweight division because so far he's absolutely looked phenomenal. He's on a bit of a streak as well, so fair play to him. I've got him winning this one by TKO in the second round, and I've also got Balo winning his fight by TKO in the second round against Paul Craig. Paul Craig obviously coming down to the middleweight division. It's quite kind of hard to gauge how Paul Craig is in the middleweight division because I think against Andre Muniz, who's another great grappler, he looked decent. He was able to last on the feet, and then obviously the TKO that he got in that fight, he looked decent against him, but then he went against Brendan Allen and got absolutely demolished in that fight. It wasn't even close. But I think Paul Craig, I've been watching a lot of his interviews, and I know you can't really base a fight off interviews, but he's giving me the energy that he wants to strike. For some reason, he's fallen in love with his hands, and I just don't think that's beneficial when you've got a guy like Balo, who's, again, another grappler, but he's also improved his striking a lot, and I'd say he's a much more bigger threat on the feet than Paul Craig. So I think on the feet, Balo's got the bigger shot, and obviously Paul Craig's got the submission that he can pull off, but I just don't think it's going to happen because Balo, his submission defense and offense is amazing, and I just think he's better everywhere the fight goes. The only route to victory I see Paul Craig having is if he pulls off a random submission. I think Baralo's submission defense is going to cause that to be unlikely, and then on the feet, if Paul Craig's trying to strike with Balo, which he could do, he's got high output as Paul Craig, but he's not the most technical striker. I see Balo hitting him with a big shot, following up with ground and pound and getting the finish in the second round. So I'm going Balo to win this one in the second round. We've seen Paul Craig in Brazil before. Last time he was in Brazil, got finished in the first round by Johnny Walker. But yeah, Balo is going to finish him in the first round. He's also been on a bit of a streak recently, and then hopefully we can see him also climb the middleweight rankings like Poirier. But yeah, tough night for Paul Craig. I just don't think he's going to get it done. He's coming off a bad loss as well. I think he's like 36-2. Anyway, next fight, Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. Yeah, this is kind of like, this fight kind of reminds me of Tom Aspinall versus Andrei Arlovski, with Vitor Petrino being the new undefeated in the UFC, or to be honest, undefeated in general. Climbing the rankings against Andrei Arlovski, the veteran. I've got Vitor Petrino by KO in the first round. I think he's going to make easy work of him. I've always been very high on Petrino's grappling when not a lot of people have. I think his grappling's super underrated. He's insanely strong, and he displayed that against Tyson Pedro. And he's also got knockout power on the feet. Anthony Smith's last couple of wins have been against Ryan Spann, which isn't impressive because Ryan Spann's terrible. I don't even know how he made it in the top 10. He's just got one-shot power, and apart from that, he's useless. So Anthony Smith's couple of wins haven't been impressive. He's coming off multiple losses. He's coming off a bad loss to a Khalil Roundtree as well, and now he's facing undefeated Vitor Petrino with knockout threat. I feel like the UFC are just trying to get rid of Anthony Smith at this point, and I've got Petrino winning this one by first round KO. He's going to use his range effective. I just don't see a route to victory for Anthony Smith. He's not going to be able to take down Petrino, and even if he does, I feel like Petrino's submissions threat is big enough, and his takedown defense is good anyway. And then on the feet, it's night and day. Petrino lands one big shot, sleeps Anthony Smith, who's looked terrible in his last few, and puts him out of there. So I've got Petrino winning the fight in the first round by knockout. Unfortunate for Anthony Smith. Maybe this is his retirement fight, or maybe his delusion's going to keep him in the sport for longer, but I've got Petrino by first round KO. I really do think he has this one in the bag. Then we have Jose Aldo versus Jonathan Martinez. This was honestly the hardest fight to predict on the card, because on one hand, you've got Jose Aldo, who's one of the greatest featherweights of all time, now in the bantamweight division, and he's got a lot of good wins. Marlon Vera, who just fought for the belt, Pedro Munoz, Rob Font. You look at these wins, and I know he's obviously had a long layoff because he's semi-retired, but you look at these wins, and you got to give it to him. It's impressive. Obviously, also coming off the loss to Marab, which ain't shameful, because he's going to be fighting for a belt next. Jonathan Martinez on a big streak, some good wins on there as well. Saeed Nurmagomedov coming off the win over Adrian Yanez, the finish over Adrian Yanez, who was able to shut him down. But I picked Aldo, man. It's his big return in Brazil, and I think he's going to show up. I don't think he'd come back for nothing. And the fact that he's got a lot of good wins over top bantamweights and the experience that Martinez doesn't, I've got Aldo winning this one as well. Martinez has also had a lot of success with his leg kicks, as I saw in the Adrian Yanez fight. Well, he's against a guy who's got equally as good leg kicks, if not better, in Jose Aldo, who's notorious for destroying people's legs. Just look at that Uriah Hall fight. So, Uriah Faber, I mean. I've got Jose Aldo winning this one by decision. It's going to be a competitive fight, but I think the boxing of Aldo and the experience is going to take him to a decision, and I really do think he's going to get it done by the end of the night. Martinez is still a top bantamweight, and I really do think he's going to be climbing the top 10 in no time, but I just think Aldo is that little bit better, but this fight was not easy to predict at all. And then we've got the main event. I'm going to be completely honest. My prediction for this fight has been switching, because on one hand, I've been thinking that Pantoja seems to exhaust in the later rounds, and Steve Erceg being the great boxer that he is, the technical boxer coming off a knockout, I thought in the later rounds, the more vulnerable that Pantoja is, Steve Erceg could hit him with a big shot and put him to sleep. But I've had to go into reality, man. At the end of the day, it's Steve Erceg's fourth fight in the UFC. He's against the champion, the best 125er right now in the world, in Brazil, obviously in enemy territory, in his fourth fight, and his best win so far is Matt Schnell. I just feel like Pantoja's going to win, although I kind of still stick with the fact that I think Steve Erceg's going to win the later rounds. I think the first couple of rounds we're going to see a lot from Pantoja. I think he's going to be the more fluid one on the feet, even though Steve Erceg's a great boxer as well, and I feel like he's going to be mixing it up with the takedowns. A lot of clinch action from Pantoja, threatening the submissions, and just overall winning the first couple of rounds. And then I think he's going to tire out. Maybe the third round's going to be super competitive. It's going to be a scrap, but I think Pantoja's going to get it, going to take the third round as well, just because of the experience he's had in the flyweight division. And then in the fourth and the fifth round, this is where I think Steve Erceg is going to land the big shots. Pantoja seems to get very vulnerable in the later rounds, kind of just shoots a takedown to save his life. But Steve Erceg is a good grappler. In fact, I'd actually say his grappling's arguably on par with his striking as well. I think he's going to have takedown defense on point, and he's going to be landing big shots in those later rounds. Maybe even might drop Pantoja once or twice, but I just think by the end of the fight, Pantoja will have done enough. I don't think Pantoja's going to sub him, because Steve Erceg's a great grappler. His jiu-jitsu, his wrestling is amazing, as we saw in his first couple of fights in the UFC. And obviously his boxing's crisp as well. I don't think Pantoja's going to outbox Steve Erceg, but I've got to go with Pantoja win this one. Even though I'm really tempted to pick Steve Erceg by knockout in the later rounds and it'll be fun and everything, my heart is telling me, Anthony Smith is telling me that on paper, Pantoja wins this fight. So I'm picking Pantoja to win by decision. But that is my prediction for the main card and the chosen prelim for UFC 301. Let me know your thoughts on these predictions and let me know your thoughts on who you think wins. And yeah, thank you for watching.